Hello, this is my first vlog for my visual culture class. I am Sean Jackowitz, and this post is about talking about new insights regarding visual culture and diversity. The majority of what I'll be talking about comes from a academic journal in the let's see, um, published in the National Council of Teachers of English by a Kathy G. Short. Um, and she looks at what's trending in children's literature and why it matters. That's the post of the article, and I'll link it below. But a long story short, she goes on to go through a lot of market data from large publishers. And then when she finds out that these large publishers really do not like to discuss their data because it's very competitive for them, that she had to rely heavily on smaller publishers, which I'll talk about a little bit, became very important that these smaller publishers are more transparent. But overall, what she noticed is that there is a really sharp rise of visual texts from you're talking children's books, of course, picture books, very very popular, but even into middle schoolers and then young adults, prevailing in young adults, graphic novels have been fairly very popular. So it's obvious that visual culture is impacting our students from very young ages and very impressionable ages too, being in the teenage years where a lot of opinions are created sort of without choice, very impressionable ages. And so she goes on to talk about how there's a real lack of cultural diversity. Like it's the stats here are pretty staggering. Here's a quote from it where the data was showing that there was a gradual increase of characters of color being featured, or even main characters in the narratives of these storybooks, rising up to about 13% in 2008. But then after the economic crash, the percentage of this representation decreased to about 7% by 2013, and that's really sharp. And that's actually ridiculous considering the fact that the market of children of color who buy these books makes up about 49%. So 49% of the market is being represented by 7%. That's insane as far as marketing value goes. So obviously they're not hitting a target, which then makes you beg the question, how's that the case? And she goes on to speculate, saying that critics, or that she critiques that the printing industry is mostly a white dominated industry, and that they're targeting primarily white middle class children, which sort of feeds into itself, because when you create industries, or when you're marketing to industries and you only market it to specific industries, well, then the data is sort of recursive in that the fact that you only feed one industry, and of course that industry will then just keep growing, where if you don't feed the other industries or give them a fighting chance, then they're not even given the opportunity to buy the books, right? So it's a problem, I think. It's a fantastic article. Goes on more specifically about some international efforts, and then the role that these small publishing houses are playing, because of these small publishers or even independent publishers and authors. They have more power over what they can produce. These big publishers just aren't letting authors use colored characters. And that's really bad for not just like representation for these children of color. They're not seeing their characters, or they're someone who looks like them being a main character saving the day, or just not being represented correctly. But you also get this false white overrepresentation, and that's misleading. And and that's detrimental to both the non-colored and colored children, creating a false dichotomy, and only making this generational culture divide worse over time. So that article I found amazing. And then there was a TED talk given by Thelma Golden a few years back in 2013, where she goes on to talk about how art gives shape to culture and cultural change. And I think it plays well with this article I mentioned, because she talks about how post-black artists are trying to evolve the dialogue about race and culture, and they're bringing up the crimes of the past, but they also want to talk about the culture of the future, and again, that needs to be done, I think, with children at a younger age. If we can show them that that their characters in their books can go on to save the world, or to stop Voldemort, or have equal characters like at that caliber, that gives them hope. It gives them aspiration. It gives them role models. It sparks imagination. So that's what's going on, or those are the new insights I could find. All fairly recent posts, all fairly recent publishings. So I think it's very relevant, and it's definitely worth the read and worth the watch. Definitely check out the links in below, and tell me what you think. Hope you enjoyed this post. Yeah, have a good day.